All right, live look at the ellipse here in D.C., where Kamala Harris is about to give her closing argument. Meantime, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump continues to embrace bro culture, the macho language that has even his most ardent supporters telling him to cool it.
It was too brotastic, okay? It was. You're trying to win an election in which you're hemorrhaging female voters. Maybe when you present in front of hundreds, thousands at least, at Madison Square Garden, you clean up the bro talk just a little so you don't alienate women.
Well, this is the problem for the Trump campaign. They're 1 week out from the election, and their bear hug with the bros is coming back to haunt them. We welcome you to the Ferris Network on television. Put back up the split screen so you can keep an eye on the stages, both Allentown, Pennsylvania, and here in D.C. Kamala Harris's last chance is tonight. Her campaign raised the stakes for tonight. They did it, not us. It is, in their words, her closing argument. I could take you through all the polls. Now, exactly 1 week until the polls close, but the numbers get boring. In short, Trump is up 6 of the 7 swing states, and in Michigan, Harris only leads by 0.2 of a point in the DDHQ average. It's a toss-up, but right now, 1 week till the election, you would rather be Trump than Harris. The polls show him slightly ahead, and with the momentum, it's close. It is very close, and you can write an argument very convincingly for either side to win. 1 week from now, we'll be making race calls, and tonight, Kamala Harris is not in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, or Wisconsin. She is in D.C. to try and change the conversation. It's high risk, high reward. Look at the picture. She's in the exact same spot Donald Trump gave his January 6th speech, and she is doing it so that I and every other TV anchor will say she's in the exact same spot Trump gave his January 6th speech on. She doesn't have to talk about January 6th. Because the media will do it for her. Her campaign says she will break through the noise. Their words, not ours again. But the preview looks a lot like things we've heard before, as prepared for delivery. Speaking of Donald Trump, this is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Bill O'Reilly standing by with whether Donald Trump has gone too brotastic. But first, Kelly Meyer. Live from the ellipse, Kamala Harris will be making her closing arguments. 30 minutes from now, we'll take the remarks live. All right, Kelly, explain to us if the campaign has any data to support this idea that they're breaking through.
And you took the words right out of my mouth there, Leland, when you talked about how she's not in Pennsylvania, she's not in North Carolina, she's in Washington, D.C., 1 week out from the election. So she's choosing to spend her time, and where she spends her time is important, and she's choosing to spend it right here in front of the White House. But the campaign is betting big on this, and they think that it'll pay off, at least is what they're telling me. They say with that group of voters, those persuadables, the small amount of persuadable voters, they say that this message of, kind of attacking former President Donald Trump and sending this warning to voters, as they call it, of who he is and what the danger of a second term would bring from the former president. They say that's getting through. They say that Trump's, quote, instability is a big concern. And when I asked about what about those folks like, people I know back in Luzerne County at the table who just aren't inspired on either side to get out and vote, what message will she have in this tonight for them? And they said that her message of turning the page and trying to move on so folks can work together, that's what she's going to be hitting on here tonight. But still, there are many Democrats who think that she shouldn't be focusing her final message 1 week out on this. They say it should be more about her and her policies and talk about who she is for voters who may not know, instead of focusing on her opponent, Leland.
No, we've seen sort of a hybrid, right? It started all about joy, then it moved to threats to democracy. Now it is a mix and match of the two. Kelly Meyer, stick around, may come back to you, head of the vice president's taking the stage. With us now, Bill O'Reilly, host of No Spin News on BillO'Reilly.com, author of the book Confronting the Presidents, No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Bill, something I just noticed, and we'll put the live shot up of the stage. USA, USA. This has taken me back to the DNC that had more American flags, I think, than any DNC I'd ever seen since 19 92. You've covered a lot more of these than I have. Is there ever been a time that the closing argument in the last week has made a significant difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in 1960, that then Senator John Kennedy's campaign closed pretty strong and overwhelmed Nixon. When I say overwhelmed, Nixon lost by 120,000 votes. It was the closest popular vote ever. It was a stunning situation, and Kennedy really closed hard and fast. Now we have two candidates who are making mistakes. So in the Madison Square Garden exposition on Sunday, which was a positive for Donald Trump, the undercard was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Now, Trump, I know this for a fact, he didn't know that comedian was who disparaged all Puerto Ricans. He didn't even know the guy was on the bill. But that's on Trump. He should have known. And he's got a lot of people working for him that are dunderheads. I know them. They wouldn't work for me or you.
I do too.
We wouldn't let them in the door. Yeah. Okay?
You know, it's interesting. I got a text from a huge Donald Trump supporter. Huge. Donald Trump says he doesn't know who the roast comedian is and doesn't know who invited him. I wonder who the idiot is that invited him. And you just answered. It's the dunderheads in the campaign who didn't vet the jokes. Yeah.
Yes.
But, I guess.
Look, but let me get to Harris. So,
well, hold on. Just stay on Trump for a second. We'll get to Harris in a second. But doesn't Trump wants to be the president of the United States. You want the nuclear codes. You're going to be the leader of the free world. Don't you have a responsibility to say, hey, in Donald Trump's favorite words, you're fired to somebody over that? This is a man who wants the ultimate responsibility and wants to take no responsibility.
Maybe he will. I don't know. But I think it's small ball about that. The overarch is he's got some bad people working for him. And I know that to be true. And they're obsequious people. They're only there because they kiss his butt. And that's not what you want. Now, on the bromance thing, whatever that is, I don't even know what that is. I think Lara Trump is very powerful within the campaign, and she's a pretty smart woman. Then I don't know the woman's name. I should. But she's very high up. Pat Summerall's daughter, the ex-football player and broadcaster. You don't see much of her.
Susie Wiles?
But very powerful in the Trump campaign. Yes, that's it. Thank you. And very smart. So I'm not buying this bro stuff. Trump has always presented himself as kind of a macho guy. He's not going to change and be sensitive Alan Alda for us. He's not. But that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that you have a campaign now that is centered around hatred. And on NewsNation tomorrow night, we're going to have a 2-hour exposition at Town Hall on the presidential sweepstakes. Now, the network, NewsNation, may have made a mistake by elevating me into a primary role here. I am not going to tolerate any hatred. I am not going to tolerate any kind of defamation not backed up. I'm not going to. And if they try it, they're going to come up against me. And on Halloween, that's not a good place to be. So with Harris, if she pulls a stunt tonight by saying we have to go back to January 6th, she'll lose for sure. She's running behind now. Her campaign is prepared to lose, unlike Hillary Clinton in 2016, who rented out a gigantic Jacob Javits Center at millions of dollars. That's how confident they were a week before the vote that they were going to win. The Harris campaign, I'm not going to say they believe they will lose, but they certainly are not optimistic at this point. They're neutral or pessimistic.
Now, there's this argument going around, right, that because Donald Trump is doing so much better in the polls relative to where he was in 2016 and 2020, he's going to get that same hidden Trump vote that is going to come out. ... Republicans keep saying people are no longer ashamed to say they support Donald Trump. There has been this awakening in America. Those two things cannot be true at once. For as much as you say the Harris campaign is ready to lose, my reporting is sort of half and half on that. the Trump campaign seems only ready to win, which is a dangerous spot to be a week out.
They are confident and at some points arrogant. All this speculation about who's going to vote for whom is dopey and a waste of everybody's time. The key stat is the Republican registration, which has surged in Pennsylvania and some other swing states. When you see people registering for a certain political party, that means there's a 90% certainty that those people will vote for that top ticket.
Yeah.
They are doing that because they're suffering. And the question all Trump has to do for the next 7 days is go, think back 4 years ago, take a look at your wallet. You want 4 more years of that massive spending, no plan? That's all he has to do.
I want to get back to what you said, though. You said he surrounds himself by people who kiss his butt, who dunderheads in your
Not
world.
all of them, but a
Not
good
all of them, but some
portion
of them.
of them.
Right. So,
right.
Do you understand the voters, and maybe this speaks more about Donald Trump than anything, who say, I was better off 4 years ago. I would like to vote for Donald Trump, but I do not want this guy who hires dunderheads in his campaign to have dunderheads in the White House and at the Pentagon. That's a problem.
Well, then you can't vote for... Then no, it's not. You can't vote for Harris either. You think she's got a bunch of geniuses running her campaign? When she goes on The View and says, I wouldn't change anything. You think she's being prepped? I mean, that woman can't answer a question. Cannot answer a question.
Yeah, the staff.
You think PhDs are running that operation? So if you can't vote for Trump because of his surrogates, then you can't vote because hers are ridiculous.
We wrote in war notes, you go to war with the candidate you have. That may be part of the problem for Kamala Harris's team.
She's a machine. No.
Right, you go to...
You're misreading it. No.
Okay.
No. She's a machine candidate. She always has been. She does what the machine tells her to do. Just like Biden did for 4 years.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, well,
exactly what I was saying.
You don't go to war with the candidate you have when the candidate you have is going to say anything you tell her to say. Trump's the total opposite. You don't know what he's going to say.
Well, that's true. I want to give credit where credit is due, because you have a prediction coming out on October 31st, which is the prediction of who is going to win the presidency. And back at the end of 2023, we had you on the program and asked for your prediction. You weren't exactly happy that I sprung the question. That's fine. Roll the tape. I want to get you on 2024. Will it be Biden versus Trump?
I don't think Biden's going to make it.
Okay. All right. I'll take that. I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, there are serious problems behind the scenes with the president that the public does not know about.
The victory lap is yours, sir.
I don't want to. This is a no gloat zone, in addition to being a no spin zone. But I was the first national commentator to say he wasn't going to make it. And that's because I went through what he has with my mother. This is exactly how I came to that analysis. My mother had, and she passed at age 93, what Biden has. It doesn't get better. So you asked me a question in late 23, I know he's going to deteriorate. Now, the question becomes, when did the White House people know, and when did Kamala Harris know? She doesn't even admit admit that he's diminished. And so I bring it back to the fact that most voters vote in the moment. This is why Harris may be making a huge mistake tonight. They vote in the moment, all right? They're not happy with the economy. They're not happy with the open border, and they know the Democratic candidate for president simply is not telling the truth about many important issues. That's a tough trifecta to overcome.
Well, 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away from the speech, the USA banners are up. I think that's interesting. I don't know why, but struck me in terms of the stagecraft. Bill,
that's
good
where
to see you. We'll see you tomorrow night.
In the USA.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you better watch, Leland. You're going to learn a lot if you watch.
Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah?
The special that you did with me,
I know,
is going to run
on
right
after the town hall.
On confronting the presidents. Yeah.
It's 4 great hours of television. 4 great hours of television. On balance, the 2-hour Cuomo town hall. Then you get to sit around and O'Reilly and I talk about the presidents. He ranks the best and the worst. Bill, thank you. Special edition of
I think
the
my
town
picture should
hall
be
with
bigger.
Cuomo.
I think my picture should be as big as Cuomo's here. You see that? They got the little picture of me and Stephen A. Giant picture of Cuomo. It's all I got to get my agent on the phone. I mean, what is this?
Go, please. You know what? I'll tell you. I got some complaints too. Your agent can file those as well. Bill, thank you. Big night tomorrow night. You'll be in New York City. I'll come see it down at the studio. Special guest, Sarah Palin. Robert, yeah, there it is. RFK Jr., Sarah Palin, among others. Warnotes.com to subscribe to our newsletter. That is our daily 4 p.m. newsletter. Comes out into your email inboxes. Our thoughts on the most important stories of the day, of which some Bill O'Reilly will shoot down. Warnotes.com to subscribe for free. We are awaiting Harris's closing message and Trump voters in Pennsylvania. Husband and wives, traditionally, and I don't have a wife yet, but I'm learning you're supposed to agree on everything. So can Democrats get wives to defy their MAGA-obsessed husbands and vote for Harris? You're going to hear that tonight. We'll get behind the data in a minute. Live pictures of the ellipse here in our nation's capital. Kamala Harris expected to come out any moment now. Allentown, Pennsylvania, where Trump is expected to speak. It says any moment now in the teleprompter. It's going to be about another hour or so. He's running behind, as he often does during the campaign. There will not be a single woman speaker for Donald Trump tonight. We're exactly 1 week out from the election, and more focus is coming down to the female vote. Perhaps Democrats' last best hope lies in suburban white women defying, their words, not ours, their MAGA-crazed husbands in voting for Kamala Harris. There are now ads all over social media reminding women their vote is secret, even from their husbands, including one ad voiced by Julia Roberts.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls.
All right, so you've got big money behind ads, and then you have the rationale coming from the politicians. Liz Cheney faced the nation this weekend.
There are also many Republicans and independents who are saying, look, I don't want to bring the wrath of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance down on me, so I'm going to vote my conscience. I'm not going to talk about it. And we obviously encourage that. Your vote is a secret vote. You should do what you know is right.
Shelby Talcott with us. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Politics reporter at Semaphore. When you see Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, Liz Cheney, and now a lot of money behind ads for this very small group of people, think about rural whites in Wisconsin, maybe some in Michigan and Pennsylvania. What's the data behind it?
Well, the data is Kamala Harris is performing much better among women than she is among men. And so if she were to win this election, there is a serious argument that it would be because of women. And some of those those undecided voters that Democrats are seeing are what they're hoping they call it ghost voters. So some of these young women who maybe haven't voted before or are low propensity voters, and they're hoping that the issues of abortion and Donald Trump's messaging will get them out to vote in large numbers.
So I totally get that, right? This concept of like the Taylor Swift voter, the young millennial Gen Z woman voting primarily on abortion rights. But this seems to be going after, and you've watched the ad, these are married women. And we always hear there's not so much a gender gap as there is a marriage gap. Married women tend to be more conservative. What's the message here?
Yeah, listen, the message here, as they are banking on the idea that female voters do not like Donald Trump on a personal level. And so the argument is, it's really interesting because what they're doing here also is sort of conceding the male vote. They're not going after the male vote in these ads. That is Donald Trump's vote.
They're almost kind of like demonizing the men in these what seem to be otherwise stable and loving relationships, right? It's an interesting play of like almost trying to divide a wedge between a woman and her husband.
Yeah, and it's notable because, again, Donald Trump is performing pretty well with males. And when you look at his rallies, that is the base that he is catering to right now. He's trying to get out the male vote. Kamala Harris in these ads is basically saying, okay, that's not our base anymore. Our base is female voters. And they're banking on the idea that female voters on a personal level don't like Donald Trump's rhetoric.
All right, and look, there's a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump's rhetoric. Megyn Kelly earlier on Vargas about this. Take a listen.
I know that it's mostly men for Trump and women for Kamala, and there's a massive gender gap here. But why lean into it? Yeah. I understand the strategy of going to Rogan, going to Sean Ryan, going to Theo Vaughn, and running up the numbers with the men. That's good. But the men I know, and I know a lot of Republican men, are not motivated by like racist jokes about Hispanics and blacks and sexist comments about women. Yeah, that's going to make me... No.
In the same way that Harris feels that she needs to juice the women vote, Trump feels he needs to juice the male vote?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing that in everything he's doing. I mean, as Megyn Kelly said, you're seeing that in this sort of second RNC convention, which was the MSG rally on Sunday. And perhaps they take things a bit too far. And I've talked to Donald Trump's aides, and some of them have said, yeah, you know what? We made a mistake. We shouldn't have had that comedian on. But it is notable that they are leaning so heavily into it. They're leaning into it with his podcast. He's going on Joe Rogan. He's going on Theo Vaughn.
JD Vance is going on.
He's going on Joe Rogan tomorrow. And so there are concerns, though, when I talk to both campaigns, that they're not reaching out to some of these other groups of voters. So Kamala Harris isn't reaching out enough to men, and Donald Trump isn't reaching out enough to women.
Right, and no women, at least so far that we know, on the pep rally, although there's a woman at the stage right now, so maybe maybe the undercard changed at the Trump rally. This is fascinating, though. Reuters poll single versus married women. Married women, Harris 46, Trump 46. Never married women 65. Never married women 28 for Trump. So there's a huge marriage gap here. And again, is there any sort of realization by the Harris team, or maybe it's worth the risk, that this ad that seems to say, like, you know what, you need to basically lie to your husband, doesn't really speak to the same people they want to reach, which seemingly are happily married, older, rural white women?
Yeah, I think it is it is a gamble. And the big thing is, when I talk to Donald Trump's campaign, they point out that sure, Kamala Harris is garnering a lot of female voters, but there is also a sect of the female vote that she is not garnering. And that is the group of women who are concerned about the economy, who are concerned about feeding their children, who are concerned about crime. And so those are the kinds of female voters. Oftentimes those are the married.
Right, those are married suburban women, yeah,
who might be leaning more towards Donald Trump.
Yeah, it was Alina Habba, Trump's lawyer and spokesperson, who was on the stage. She was not wearing her sequin MAGA jacket that she had at Madison Square Garden. It was quite the statement piece. It was great to see you, as always. Thanks. Awesome reporting in Semaphore. All right, Kamala Harris's campaign is notoriously on time, and we will say it again. She is speaking at the same place Donald Trump did for January 6th because she wants us to say that. So, take a quick break. When we come back, the early voting numbers that has Kamala Harris's new message revamped. We'll see you in a minute. All right, back with breaking news, 7:30 p.m. Eastern in both Washington, D.C. and Allentown, Pennsylvania. Allentown, Pennsylvania, bottom of your screen. Donald Trump will take the stage in about an hour, so an hour and a half late, which is sort of par for the course with his schedule these days. And the ellipse, Kamala Harris, will make her closing remarks shortly. This is what she has billed as her closing argument speech, much like Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden speech on Sunday. Both sides tell us every day that American democracy depends on getting them your vote. And more than 50 million Americans have already listened. And that means raw data, real data, not polls, is available. And if one looks at the raw data, they may be able to look at the tea leaves of where this election is going. It's exactly what Scott Tranter does. Director of Data Science, Decision Desk HQ, is with us. Jonathan Cott, former communications director, senior advisor to Senator Joe Manchin, is available. And we're watching on the screen as someone walks out on the stage. We saw Doug Emhoff earlier. That does not look like Kamala Harris, is it, guys? No, not Kamala Harris. We'll break in when she comes out. All right, to you, Scott Tranter, Pennsylvania early voting. 2024, Democrat 58%, Republican 31. 2020, Democrat 69, Republican 21. 10-point swing. How significant is that?
Well, we got to see another week of it. It's not as significant as the swing we're seeing in Nevada, Pennsylvania. That is certainly more than 2020, but we expected the GOP's pushing early vote there, and we're seeing the GOP electorate respond there. I'd like to see a little bit more of the early vote before we make a pronouncement, so to speak.
Suffice it, though, Jonathan, you'd a lot rather be 10 points ahead than 10 points behind 2020.
Sure, but 4 years ago, Donald Trump was saying that early voting was illegal and fraudulent, so Republicans didn't early vote. I don't put a lot of stock in Democrats doubling the amount of early voting we had in Georgia. I just think more Democrats got out early to vote. I don't think we're doubling the amount of votes we had in Georgia. So I think you can put some stock in it, but I think a lot of stuff has changed. 2020 was kind of an anomaly because of COVID. Pennsylvania, changed some of how they do their elections. So, yeah, you would rather be 10% up, but I don't put a lot of stock in it. The ground game is what matters in this last week.
One stat we look at in early voting where Pennsylvania is showing basic stability is about 90% of the voters for both Democrats and Republicans have voted in the past. In other words, basically both parties are getting out voters who are going to show up. We look for the new ones, and that's kind of what we're looking for to see if either side has a breakout.
Right, so that's the idea, right? These are not new Republican voters. These are Republican voters who have always voted, but now they're voting, voting early. Look, Republicans are awfully giddy, I think may be the right word, over these numbers. Here's Melania, Karl Rove, and Andrew Clyde. Take a listen.
Kind of the same like 2016. The support out there, it's incredible. And it's just, people see what's going on in the country and what kind of leadership they want.
If he wins Georgia, the race is over. If he wins Pennsylvania and loses Georgia, the race is over.
I think it shows their level of desperation. They are at the end of their wits because they know they're going to lose.
It's interesting logic there from the congressman. Tranter, to you, the primary driver of Republican confidence I see is that the polls for Donald Trump are better than they have ever been, especially in the swing states. He's up in a number of them, something that had never happened in the past. They say that the hidden Trump vote, Trump outperforming, is going to happen again. Will it?
Certainly could. One interesting phenomenon we've seen in the polls, and it's not been something we've seen over Republicans, is people who vote infrequently are identifying as Trump voters. For the last 20 years, people who voted infrequently had tended to identify as Democratic voters. So if you think about it, a high turnout is good for Donald Trump in these upper Midwestern states. That could be the hidden Trump vote we see there, hidden in the sense that we don't expect them to turn out, but maybe they will this time.
All right, Kamala Harris walking out. The pageantry here matters. The pictures matter. The coverage later matters. The USA signs very reminiscent of the Democratic convention, very reminiscent almost of the 1992 Democratic convention, wrapping herself in the flag. We got USA signs there. Seems that almost everybody's been given a flag, especially the people behind her. We see freedom and freedom on the billboards, and we saw behind her now, staged perfectly, the White House, where she hopes to take up residence on January 20th, should she win and become the first woman president in American history. Here's her closing argument.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives. Thank you, everyone. So listen, 1 week from today, you will have the chance to make a decision that directly impacts your life, the life of your family, and the future of this country we love. And it will probably be the most important vote you ever cast. And this election is more than just a choice between two parties and two different candidates. It is a choice about whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every American or ruled by chaos and division. Many of you watching have probably already cast your ballots. But I know many others are still considering who to vote for, or whether you'll vote at all. So tonight, I will speak to everyone about the choice and the stakes in this election. Look, we know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: "So what?" America, that's who Donald Trump is. And that's who is asking you to give him another 4 years in the Oval Office. Not to focus on your problems, but to focus on his. And Donald Trump has told us his priorities for a second term. He has an enemies list of people he intends to prosecute. He says that one of his highest priorities is to set free the violent extremists who insulted those law enforcement officers on January 6th. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are. That is not who we are. You see, what Donald Trump has never understood is that e pluribus unum, out of many, one, isn't just a phrase on a dollar bill. It is a living truth about the heart of our nation. Our democracy doesn't require us to agree on everything. In fact, we like good arguments from time to time. Just think of your own family, right? It's not the American way to not have disagreements. We don't shy away from robust debate. In fact, we like a good debate, don't we? We like a good debate. And the fact that someone disagrees with us does not make them the enemy within. They are family, neighbors, classmates, co-workers. They are fellow Americans. And as Americans, we rise and fall together. America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America. Now look, let me say, I recognize this has not been a typical campaign. Even though I've had the honor of serving as your vice president for the last 4 years, I know that many of you are still getting to know who I am. Well, let me tell you, I am someone who has spent most of my career outside of Washington, D.C., so I know that not all the good ideas come from here. I am not afraid of tough fights against bad actors and powerful interests, because for decades, as a prosecutor and a top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fights against big banks that ripped off homeowners, against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who abused women and children, and cartels that trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. And I did this work because for as long as I can remember, I have always had an instinct to protect. There's something about people being treated unfairly or overlooked that frankly just gets to me. I don't like it. It's what my mother instilled in me, a drive to hold accountable those who use their wealth or power to take advantage of other people. The drive to protect hardworking Americans who aren't always seen or heard and deserve a voice. And I will tell you that is the kind of president I will be. And look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But here's what I promise you. I will always listen to you, even if you don't vote for me. I will always tell you the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. I will work every day to build consensus and reach compromise to get things done. And if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. So look, in less than 90 days, either Donald Trump or I will be in the Oval Office. Okay? On day one, if elected, Donald Trump would walk into that office with an enemies list. When elected, I will walk in with a to-do list full of priorities of what I will get done for the American people. And I will work with everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents to help Americans who are working hard and still struggling to get ahead. I have been honored to serve as Joe Biden's vice president. But I will bring my own experiences and ideas to the Oval Office. My presidency will be different because the challenges we face are different. Our top priority as a nation 4 years ago was to end the pandemic and rescue the economy. Now, our biggest challenge is to lower costs that were rising even before the pandemic and that are still too high. I get it. I still remember our mother sitting at that yellow Formica table, late at night, cup of tea in hand, a pile of bills in front of her, trying to make it all work. And I've heard from so many of you who are facing even greater financial pressures. Donald Trump's answer to you is the same as it was the last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything you buy that is imported. Think about it. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average family nearly $4,000 more a year. And on top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and repeals the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back because we also know Donald Trump would deliver tax cuts to his billionaire donors. I will deliver tax cuts to working people and the middle class. I will make sure you have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. Because I believe in honoring the dignity of work. I will enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries. Cap the price of insulin and limit out-of-pocket prescription costs for all Americans. I will fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live. I'll never forget how our mother saved up and how excited she was when she could finally afford to buy our first home. I remember how excited she was. And I know that owning a home is not only a measure of financial security, it's about the pride of your hard work. And as president, I will fight to help first-time home buyers with your down payment, take on the companies that are jacking up rents, and build millions of new homes. For years, we have heard excuses about why America can't build enough housing. Enough with the excuses. I'm going to cut the red tape and work with the private sector and local governments to speed up building and get it done. And the cost of housing isn't the only financial pressure on middle-class families. I have met so many young people who have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources to do it. So I'll fight for a child tax credit to save them some money, which will also lift American children out of poverty. I'll work to lower the cost of childcare, which is out of reach for too many working families today. And for too many people in the sandwich generation who are raising young children and taking care of a parent, juggling all of it is extremely difficult. You know, I took care of my mother when she got sick, cooking food that she had a taste for, finding clothes that would not irritate her skin, and understand, as I do, that caregiving is about dignity. It is about dignity. And currently, if you need home care and you don't have some money to hire someone, you and your family need to deplete your savings to qualify for help. That's just not right. So we're going to change the approach and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home care so seniors can get the help and care they need in their own homes. Now, Donald Trump has a different approach. He tried to cut Medicare and Social Security every year he was president. Look, I believe that when people have worked hard their entire life, they deserve to retire with the benefits they have earned. And I believe in the fundamental freedom of Americans to make decisions about their own bodies and not have their government tell them what to do. I will fight to restore what Donald Trump and his hand-selected Supreme Court justices took away from the women of America. That today, 1 in 3 women in America, think about it, 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, many with no exceptions even for rape and incest. The idea that a woman who survives a crime of a violation to her body should not have the authority to make a decision about what happens to her body next, that is immoral. That is immoral. And Trump's not done. He would ban abortion nationwide, restrict access to birth control and put IVF treatments at risk, and force states to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025 and read the plans for yourself. And look, I think we all know one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to simply agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. Not the government. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. And look, on another subject, politicians have got to stop treating immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election. And instead, treat it as the serious challenge that it is that we must finally come together to solve. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. When I was Attorney General of a border state, I saw the chaos and violence caused by transnational criminal organizations that I took on. And when I am president, we will quickly remove those who arrive here unlawfully, prosecute the cartels, and give Border Patrol the support they so desperately need. At the same time, we must acknowledge we are a nation of immigrants. And I will work with Congress to pass immigration reform, including an earned path to citizenship for hardworking immigrants like farm workers and our dreamers. As Commander-in-Chief, I will make sure America has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has shown his contempt for our nation's heroes, calls them suckers and losers, called a 4-star Marine general a, quote, lowlife. I will always honor, never denigrate, the service and sacrifice of our troops and their families, and fulfill our sacred...
All right, we took Donald Trump yesterday. Fair is fair. We take Kamala Harris tonight for her closing arguments. And this is the image she and her campaign want, standing in front of the White House. And now America must decide if they would like her as their commander-in-chief. If she meets that test as what will be, and we've told you this for a while now, a wartime president, whoever becomes president on January 20th. The current commander-in-chief, President Biden, tonight, speaking, yes, he did, to the press pool, saying the only garbage I see floating out there about Donald Trump's comedic joke at Madison Square Gardens, the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. So that will be the news tomorrow in terms of whether Kamala Harris agrees with her boss or not. I'm Leland Vittert in D.C., Chris in New York. See you tomorrow night.